Hello, my name is Kristen Jowie, and I'm the Edmonds College Foundation Scholarship Administrator. Thanks so much for volunteering to be a scholarship reader this year. In this video, I'm going to walk you through the reviewer process, including the application, the scorecard, and the rubrics. I've captioned this video, so if you would like to turn on captions, you can do so by clicking the CC in the video toolbar. This is going to be a long video with a lot of information in it. In the description box below, I've put timestamps so you can navigate to different sections throughout the video. This will be particularly helpful as you revisit the video content and just want to refresh on a particular section or topic. I'm here to support you every step of the way, so if you have any questions, please reach out to me via email at kristen.jowie@edmonds.edu. Let's get started. Our scholarship application and review process runs through a scholarship management software called AwardSpring. If you already have an account, you can click Forgot Password, and it'll prompt you to enter the email you used so you can reset your password. If you know you have an account, but you aren't sure what email you used, let me know and we can figure it out. If this is your first time reviewing, I need to set up your account. Just so you know, the information stored in AwardSpring is only accessible by Foundation staff, so don't worry about other schools asking you to review. Once you're in the system, you'll see a dashboard. If you go in before I've assigned you the reviewer group or any applications, it'll say, "You don't have any applications assigned yet. Check back later." On my dashboard, you can see that I've been assigned to the 22-23 reviewer group. Right now, I've just got one test application in here, but once the reviewer period begins, there will be many more applications. I'm going to click on the 22-23 reviewer group. This takes me to my application dashboard. You can see that the application status says not started and that the score is a blank. This will change as you go in and write scores for the application. To get into the application, click on the application name. Note that the application name is actually a number because I've hidden student names from reviewers. Now we're on the application. I'm going to minimize the scorecard for now. This puts it at the bottom right corner as a minimized window, and you can click expand to bring it back up. You can see at the top that there are previous and next buttons. They're grayed out right now because there's only one application in my reviewer bucket, but once there are multiple applications, these will be orange clickable buttons. This is an easy way to get to the previous and next applications if you're in an application currently. If you're on an application but not sure if you've scored it yet, check the scorecard. It'll be blank if you haven't scored anything yet. You can also navigate back to the application dashboard by clicking on the groups, and then clicking on 22-23 reviewer groups, and then you'll get back to your dashboard. A few things to keep in mind as you score. Edmonds College is an open access institution. That means anyone in our community can be a student. You'll see when you review applications that our students come from a wide array of backgrounds, have different education levels, different language abilities, different career goals, and more. That's what makes Edmonds College, or any community college, so great. Our community isn't homogeneous, and the Edmonds College student population isn't either. Keep this in mind as you score. For answers where the grammar or sentence structure is off, try not to get hung up on those. As reviewers, we aren't scoring application based on grammar. If an application is full of grammar and spelling errors, but you can still read their story and make a determination on the score, then look past the errors. However, if a student's answer is so poorly written that you can't determine what they were trying to get across, then that'll probably affect your score because you won't be able to get a full picture of the student. There are questions where we put a minimum word count, and treat this more as a guide when you score rather than an absolute. Take your time scoring. You don't need to score all in one sitting. If you find doing a few applications and then switching to something else and coming back to the applications later works better for you, go for it. You'll be able to tell which applications you've scored because it will say completed by it. When you finish scoring, no need to submit your scores right away. Take a break and revisit for a final look before submitting. You have until May 5th to finish scoring, so you can go back at any time until then and revise your scores. Lastly, I'll tell you how the scoring process works. Each application is scored by 3 reviewers. The system then averages the 3 scores to determine a student's ranking. So don't stress too much about if you'll be the one to make or break a student getting a scholarship. The application has 3 sections: academic learning and reflection, financial need, and planning for the future. The 2 areas you should pay attention to in the academic learning and reflection section are the GPA and the academic reflection and essay question. I've also left the degree level and degree type in this section because I find it handy to have that information when I am scoring. We heard from reviewers last year that they'd prefer not to have to score GPA. Unfortunately, our software system doesn't have the capability for me to put in a score that carries over to all scorecards yet. Hopefully, it'll be a feature in the future. To make this process more anonymous, I've hidden the transcripts. It also makes it easier for reviewers because they don't have to open files and decipher transcripts. Trust that the number that the student has reported for their GPA is correct. When I go to award scholarships, I will verify the student's GPA. The academic reflection essay question is at the bottom of the academic learning and reflection section. We added this question to give students space to talk about the story behind their GPA. Maybe a student was in school 20 years ago and wasn't college ready and failed their classes. They're back now and getting great grades, but those failed courses from 20 years ago are still in their transcript. Or maybe a student has a 2.8, but they're working 2 jobs and taking care of their family. That student would love to have a higher GPA, but is doing the best they can given all their responsibilities. Or maybe a student started to take biology classes with hopes of becoming a doctor. A few quarters in, they realized that the program wasn't the right fit for them and switched to economics. However, those biology classes they took are still bringing their GPA down, even though they aren't majoring in that area anymore. Everyone's educational journey is different, and we wanted to give students space to talk about it. The second part of the application is the financial needs section. In this section, I haven't hidden any student answers. You'll be able to see how much they estimate their educational costs to be, how they intend to pay for their educational expenses, if they are employed, how many people they support with their wages, if they are applying for FAFSA or WASFA, which is the federal and state financial aid application, and an essay question where they can give more detail to support their financial need. Let's talk about the educational cost question. In the application, I inform students that we consider educational costs to be tuition, fees, books, and supplies only. I gave them a link to the college's tuition and fee page. I also told them that the average cost of books and supplies for the year is about $1,400. I asked them to determine their educational costs by finding the number of credits for a quarter, using the college's tuition page, and multiplying it by the number of quarters they were going to be attending to get their tuition cost. I asked them to add $1,400 to that number to account for books and supplies. The final number was what they should use to answer the educational cost question. An example of this is if a student is taking a 16-unit course load for 3 quarters, that's $4,500 for a domestic student pursuing an associate's degree. If you add $4,500 for tuition with $1,400 for supply book cost, the total amount is $5,900. That is the amount for educational costs. For the most part, it seems like students followed this formula. However, I did notice some who did not. If it feels like a student put a very high number, I'd recommend checking first the academic learning and reflection section to see if they are pursuing a certificate, associate's, or bachelor's degree, since bachelor students pay more. Next, I check the financial needs section to see if a student is going to be part-time or full-time. After taking a look at that information, and if it still feels like something isn't quite right, then that might influence the score you give a student. You're also welcome to reach out to me and we can talk through how to score the application. Financial need is one of the sections where I think we as reviewers have the potential to infer more information than is provided. You'll see that when we walk through the rubrics using my sample application. Keep in mind you can only score based on the information that is provided. This keeps scoring equitable and takes the burden off of you as the reviewer to try to justify higher scores. If you have questions about this or come across applications you aren't sure how to score, let me know. The last section is planning for the future. This section looks very different from last year. We changed the name of the section, the number of questions, and the questions themselves. There's a few reasons for this. Last year, we had one big essay, and we noticed that students didn't answer all parts of the question. We've broken things out this year in hopes that students do answer all of the questions being asked. You might notice the questions are very different this year. There is data to suggest that students can feel the need to have something traumatic to talk about in order to receive a scholarship. This is problematic in two ways. Students who have past or current hardships relive them as they write their application, and students who haven't experienced a hardship feel like they won't be awarded a scholarship because of it. We've made a very conscious decision to have questions that focus on a student's education and career goals, why they are interested in that particular path, and how they plan to accomplish it. We hope this helps students to not feel pressured to write about hardships. Still, a student's hardship might have impacted their reason for choosing a particular education or career path, and so they might include information about it in their application. In your review process, you might still encounter things that can be hard to read, like stories about abuse, addiction, or pain. Take care of yourself in this process. Take a deep breath. Recognize that this student is sharing something deeply personal with you, and that takes courage, self-awareness, and maturity to articulate it. And if you find you are triggered by something you read, that's okay too. And it's absolutely okay to stop reading the application and ask me to reassign it. Lastly, if you read something that you think should be reported, you can put it in the notes section of your scorecard or email me and I'll escalate it to the proper channels. Let's take a look at the scorecard. The scorecard has 8 areas where you'll need to assign point values. We'll talk more about the point values once we get to the rubrics. The other area of the scorecard is the notes section. As a reviewer, I find this to be really handy because I can record my thoughts about each application as I score them. When I go back in to review my scores before submitting, the notes section helps me to know what I was thinking before I scored, so I don't have to reread the whole application. The notes section is also invaluable to me as an administrator. If a student asks me why they received the score they did, I can refer back to the notes left by reviewers to give them pointers on how they could have scored better. You can click Save as many times as you'd like to update the scorecard. Let's take a look at the rubrics. Students have had access to these rubrics via our scholarship website, and we asked them to look at the rubrics as they wrote their application. The 3 rubrics this year are academic learning and reflection, financial need, and planning for the future. Financial need is our highest point rubric with 40 points, followed by academic learning and reflection, and planning for the future with 30 points each. For the academic learning and reflection rubric, there are 2 components, GPA and academic reflection essay. We heard from reviewers that we simplified the GPA scoring a little bit too much last year, so we've added a few more categories back in. The GPA section is worth a possible 12 points with 5 different score levels. We've set everything to be below a 2.5 as 0 points, as all of our scholarships but one have a 2.5 minimum GPA. The second part of the rubric is the academic reflection and essay question, and it's worth a possible 18 points with 4 different score levels. Since everyone's educational journey is different, the content and length of the answer will vary. In my sample application, the students said that they have a 3.8, so that would earn them 12 points based on the rubrics. In the academic reflection essay, they talked about being a student 20 years ago and failing. They are back now and getting good grades, but their GPA is lower than they'd like because of those classes from 20 years ago. This is enough reflection for me to give them 18 possible points. The next rubric is financial need. This rubric is worth a possible 40 points with 4 different score levels. We'll use all of the information in the financial needs section to determine a score. In the application, the students said that their educational costs were $5,900, They do not qualify for any aid that they do not have to pay back, so they will need to pay out of pocket with credit cards or take out student loans. They will be a full-time student, they are employed full-time, and they support 3 people with their wages. They have applied for FAFSA or WAFSA. And lastly, they say that they are the primary provider in their family, and they do their best to budget and save. They find it hard to have anything left over each month to pay for their educational costs. If they are not awarded a scholarship, they will need to pay for school with credit cards or take out loans. Based on their response, the student only really has options to pay for school that incur debt. They are supporting people with their wages, mention that they are trying to budget, but don't have much left over every month for educational expenses. I feel like they gave some general information about being the primary provider, not qualifying for financial aid that doesn't incur debt, having a family of 3, and that the area is expensive to live in. However, they didn't provide enough specific examples, such as what their expenses are or why they don't qualify for FAFSA. So it is hard for me to say for sure that they have many expenses or circumstances that create financial need. I can certainly make the argument that they have some expenses or circumstances that create financial need. I could try to build a story about this student, like think of a reason of why they don't qualify for financial aid, or just how many expenses they have with a household of 3, just to try to justify giving them 40 points, because it feels like if they had given just a little bit more information, I would have definitely been able to determine a 40-point level of need. But I'm only supposed to score based on the information provided in the application, and I don't feel like I had enough information to warrant a 40-point score. So I'd give this student 20 points for financial need. The last rubric is planning for the future. This rubric is worth a possible 30 points. Each of the 5 essay questions are worth a possible 6 points with 3 different levels. Keep in mind, not every answer is going to be heart-tugging, and we're not asking you to rate on if a student has a heartbreaking story, but that they've demonstrated their character and educational goals. You'll see that we put a suggested 75 to 100 word count on each question. That said, you don't have to go copy and paste answers into a word processing document to see if a student met the word count minimum. A student might be able to write less than 75 to 100 words and provide a satisfactory answer, or a student might write way more than that and not answer the question at all. Let's look at the application. For the first question, what are your career goals? What are your academic goals? Describe the ways you plan to accomplish your education and career goals. This student said that they are working towards a culinary arts degree and that their ultimate goal is to own their own food truck business. They give some details about what they know they're going to need to do in order to get their food truck business set up. Pretty straightforward. I feel like I have enough information here to give the student 6 out of 6 points for their answer. But what if a student said, I don't know what I want to do yet? That's okay. Did they talk about possible areas of interest, things they know they don't want to do? The example I gave for students for this type of situation was, you know for sure you want to work in a museum, but you're not quite sure what you want to do specifically. So for this answer, you could say that you want to work at a museum, but you aren't totally sure in what capacity yet. That working in a museum appeals to you because you're very interested in history and you like to share your knowledge with other people. Ideally, you'd like to be more of a behind-the-scenes person than someone who's working in big crowds. That gives me enough information to go on to at least give them a 3. For the second question, tell us about any experiences, influences, or interests that have led you to your current academic or career path. The student gives several examples of why they've chosen their education and career path, from being interested in food from a young age to working in the service industry to why they want to open a food truck business specifically. I'd give this answer a 6 out of 6. For the next question, tell us about any challenges you have had in pursuing your education and career goals. The student says that their education is going to take a long time and is expensive. While that's certainly true, it really doesn't give any insight into the student's challenges. There's no examples and there's no real substance here. I'd give this answer a 0 out of 6. For the fourth question, what positive differences have you made in your community? The student talks about bringing food to people in their community, and it's opened doors for ways to make a positive difference in other ways. This answer is a good example of making a positive difference in one's community without being a traditional volunteer role. And it also defines the community as the place that the person lives in. I'd give this answer a 6 out of 6 as well. For the last question, tell us how a scholarship and degree or certificate from Edmonds College will help you achieve your goals. The student reintroduces the idea of a long road ahead of them and the financial strain, that the scholarship will provide financial relief and emotional support. That's a good enough answer for me to give this a 6 out of 6 points. Now it's time to put in the scores. Normally, I would do this as I was reading through the application. For GPA, I said that the student had a 3.8, and that falls into the 12-point category based on the rubrics. For the academic reflection essay question, I thought they gave me enough information that I felt good about giving them 18 out of 18 points. For financial need, I felt like they gave me some general information with a few specifics, but I was lacking enough specific examples and information to give them the full 40 points. So I decided to give them 20 out of 40 points. For most of the planning for the future essays, I felt like they gave me specific information about what their goals were and how they were going to achieve them. For the challenges question, though, there really wasn't much to go on. So I'm going to give them 6 out of 6 for each of the essay questions, except for that challenges question. I'm going to give them 0 out of 6 for that one. Okay, so now our scorecard is filled out. I want to put in some notes about the things I thought about as I scored so I can refer back to them and also have them be handy for the scholarship administrator. Great. I'm going to go ahead and click Save. So I'm going to scroll up and click on Groups, the 22-23 reviewer group, and now I'm back at my application dashboard. I can see the status on the application is complete and that the score is 74%. So that's the basics of how to score. Some of the applications will be easier to score than others. And if you find you're stuck, ask yourself if the student answered all parts of the question and if they gave enough examples where you felt like you had the full picture, or maybe there were areas where you wished you would have had more information. And if that doesn't help, reach out. I'm available to answer questions via email, the phone, or over Zoom. I'm most available during normal business hours, but happy to set up time to chat most evenings and weekends if that works best for you. Lastly, on behalf of the Edmonds College Foundation, thank you for your help to ensure that Edmonds College students have access to the scholarships they need